Good morning, one and all. I'm Dr. Hussain Sharif, Department of CSM, working as an associate professor. Today we'll discuss about the topic graphical representation of data. See the purpose of the graphical representation of the data. So how the data will understand in graphical format, and how will the collect the data, and how will analyze the data, and how will interpret the data, and how to represent the data in visualization form. We'll see in this topic. So in this graphical representation of data, we are following the two methods. The first one we can call it as a scatter plot chart, and second one we can call it as a histogram. See, these two are performed using this graphical representation of data. So in this graphical representation of data, first we'll go for the scatter plot. The main purpose of the scatter plot is a two-dimensional chart. So in this scatter plot, following the x-axis and y-axis, so it is supplied the data in on time in a real-time examples. So in this data, so when we use this scatter plot chart, so how to data represent in graphical format, and how to visualize the, and how to represent the data in a supplied data purpose. So we can discuss this in this topic. So in this scatter plot chart, so generally in this scatter plot chart, we are following the two data sets. The first data set we can call it as the x-axis, and second data set we can call it as the y-axis. So these two are the correlated data sets. And coming to the next one, this type of the charts displays the many data points. So the purpose of these data points, it will follow the vertical axis operations, and it will follow the horizontal operations also. And in this these two are interrelations between the two variables. And actually the main working principle of this scatter plot chart here, to place the one variable to another variable in x-axis and y-axis, and it will it will perform the one variable for vertical axis and another variable for horizontal axis, and each and every data piece, so to plotted on each and every discrete point. So when we see this another name of this scatter plot, so a scatter graph, and also we can call it as a scatter graphs, and also we can call it as a scatter charts, and also we can call it as a scattergrams, and a scatter diagrams, and a XY graph. So coming to the scatter plot chart, we'll see the working principle. So in this work, and this is the scatter plot chart. So in this scatter plot chart, here following the 5 fields. What are the 5 fields? The first field we can call as the chart title, second field we can call as the plot area, and third field we can call as the horizontal axis, and the fourth field we can call as the vertical axis, and fifth one we can call as the legend. So these 5 are represented in this graph. So coming to this graph, so these are all the components: the plot area, chart title, and vertical axis, and horizontal axis, and legend. We'll see one by one. So coming to the plot area. So this total entire block we can call as the plot area. The main purpose of this plot area is to represent the graphical form, and to how to work the sheets within the form, and how to where the data can drawn. Everything we can perform in this plot area only. So how to represent the data, and how to draw the data, and the working principles, everything will performed in this entire plot area. And coming to the chart title, so in this chart title represent the subject. So this in this chart title, it represents the scatter plot, and it represents the histogram, or it represents another titles. So here represents the each and every title. So and it represents the subject title, and it represents the purpose of the title is determined to help the motive, and to help the editing also possible. It can be editing also possible, and it can be position also replaced, or we can move the position from left to right. So everything is possible in this chart title. Coming to the vertical axis. So in this vertical axis, also called as the x-axis. So the representation of the x-axis is, so in this x-axis, so we can also call it as the x-axis. So it is located on the bottom of the chart area. So the bottom of the chart area we can call it as the x-axis. It represents the data points, and it represents the data numbers, and the purpose, the measurement of the values. It represents the main purpose is it typically represents the measurements, and it typically represents the values across the x-axis. Then coming to the horizontal axis, and we can also call it as the y-axis. The main purpose of the horizontal is it is the purpose of the horizontal axis. It represents the left side of the window, left side of the plot area. So in this is the entire plot area. This plot area, this entire box we can call as a plot area. So down part of the plot area we can represent the x-axis, and left side of the part we can call as the y-axis. And so in this horizontal axis, it represents the different types of the data, and it represents the different types of the categories. And so these are all with the help of the y-axis may perform. So and one more thing, it can be group of series of data it represent in horizontal axis. So we'll see next one, legend. In this legend, it will perform the two fields. The first field it indicate with the red color, and second field it can be indicated with the blue color. So the red color sold items, and green color the rainfall. So here the example for how many in the rainfall time, how many umbrellas are sold. So for example, here in this y-axis, so it will start with the 0 and 15 number of the operations may perform, sold operations may perform. If you see the y-axis from 0 to 120, so when the rainfall start from the some particular 90 meters, so it will be the rainfall may down, and it may increase so up to end of the operations. So in this case, so how many umbrellas are sold? So when the rainfall is more, so the umbrellas may sold more. So when the rainfall is less, so it may decrease the umbrellas sold items. So when we see these components, these are all the 5 components. So it represented in this scatter plot chart. So when we go for the next one, histogram. So see the advantages. So what are the advantages are there in this scatter plot advantages? So it helps to determine the relation between the two to more variables. So the relation will we observe the relationship between the two to more variables, and will we see the relationship between the one variable to another variable. So these are all the main advantages. And one more thing, these scatter plots can show the correlations visually. So it represents the visually. So the relation between the so it will the relation between the rainfall and the relation between the umbrella sold. So it can represent the visually represent the data. So that is the one more advantage. And another advantage, it can be easily analyze maximum values, and it can be easily analyze the minimum values. That means high values and low values in the scatter plot on the data flow range. So when we see the graph, so it will be represent the maximum values and minimum values. It can be easily described, and it can be easily analyzed. So when we analyze so if the maximum values are there, so it can be easily analyzed. If the minimum values are there, it can be easily analyzed. So if comes to the maximum values, this is the high values. So high values in the scatter plot, the data flow range may crossed or not, it may verified. And if you see the minimum values, that is the low values, in the scatter plot charts, it will be see that data flow may be reduced or not. So it may observe these 2 points. And these 3 are the advantages. When we see the next concept, histogram. So histogram also one of the graphical representation of the data. So in this graphical representation of the data, histogram, see when we see the histogram, this is also one of the graphical representation method. The main purpose of the histogram to represent the frequency distribution of the continuous series using rectangles. So it will be use the rectangles to continuous series. Continuous series means it will follow the data flow, like start from the zero, so on. So it's a so up to n. So it's a continuous series. It will be continuously perform the frequency and the distribution of the data. And if you see here also following the 2 operations, one is the x-axis and the another one is the y-axis. The main purpose of these x-axis, it represents the class intervals, and the main purpose of the y-axis is it represents the various frequencies corresponding to the different class intervals. See the difference of these x-axis and the y-axis. For example, if you see these 2-dimensional diagrams, so the width of the rectangle is shown in the width, in the class intervals, and the length of the rectangles it displays the frequency, corresponding frequency. So there is a no gap between these two consecutive rectangles based on the histogram. So when we totally this coming to the histogram, so this the distribution data is continuous flow. So when we see the histogram, it will follow the two examples. The first example is the following table. So there are lamp lifetime. Here presented the neon lamps, and based on this, so when we using these neon lamps, we'll perform the histogram. So for example, here in this field there are two fields. First field is lifetime of the neon lamp, and second field is number of the lamps are presented. So using this table, so we'll perform the histogram. So first of all, we'll see the lifetime in hours, 300 to 400 hours. So we have a 14 neon lamps are presented, and if you see the 400 to 500 hours, there are 56 neon lamps are presented. So it will be work 400 to 500 hours, 56 are there. And if you see the 500 to 600, there is a 60 neon lamps are presented. If you see the 600 to 700, 86 neon lamps are presented. If you see the 700 to 800, 74. If you see the 800 to 900, 62. If you see the 900 to 1000, 48 neon lamps are there. So in this example, this table represents these two fields. First one is the lifetime of the neon lamp. Second one is the number of the lamps are presented. So if you see the based on these two fields and based on this table, we'll perform the histogram. So in this histogram, first of all, x-axis. If you see the x-axis, this is the x-axis, and if you see the y-axis, so in this x-axis, here following the lifetime in hours. So 300, the minimum range is 300, the maximum range is 5,000. So I start from the 300, start from the 0. So 0. So there is no 100 and 200. So start from the 300 for here in this x-axis presented the data fields 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, and 1000. So when we see the y-axis here presented the number of the lamps are presented. If you see the number of the lamps, so start from the 0. So there is a 14 is the minimum and the maximum is 86. So now we'll take the range between the 0 to 90. So 0, 10, 14, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. So there is number of lamps are presented 0 to 90. There is a lifetime presented in the 300 to 1000. So when we see the first field 300 to 400, the range between the 300 to 400, here 14 are presented. So in this diagram represented 300 to 400. So in this 300 to 400, so here, so in between the 10 to 20, there's 14 is placed here. For example, so in this here, this 14 is placed here. So in this 14, so we have to draw the number of the lamps are presented 300 to 400 is here. So 14 is placed here in between the 10 to 20. And if you see the next one, 400 to 500, 56 is presented. So 56 is 400 to 500. So 56 is there in between 50 to 60. So 50 to 60, here 56 is presented. So you have to draw the histogram, so up to the 56. So if you see the next one, 500 to 600, there is a 60. So 60 is indicated here. So you have to use this 60 here. You have to draw the histogram. When we see the 600 to 786, so 86 is presented in between the 80 to 90. So you have to draw 86 here. So if you see the next one, 700 to 874. So 700 to 874. So if you see the 700 to 800, so 74 is presented here in between the 70 to 80. So if you see the 800 to 900, 62. So 62 is 800 to 900, 62 is presented in between the 60 to 70. So 62 is here. So if you see the 900 to 1048, so 900 to 1000. So if you see this 48 is presented in between the 40 to 50. So 48 is here. So based on this table, based on this table and these two fields, we have to draw this histogram. So in this histogram, x-axis perform the lifetime and y-axis perform the number of the lamps based on the diagram, based on the example. So if you see the one more example, so this is the example 1. If you see the example 2, so in this example 2, so there is a student data. In the student data presented the following information from the histogram. So student data in the student marks are presented x-axis, and number of the students are presented in y-axis. If you see the number of the marks, the range between the 0 to 10 get the 16 students, 10 to 20 marks get the 36 students, 30 to 40, 20 to 30 get the 70, and 30 to 40 get the 50, and 40 to 50 get the 28 students. Now the x-axis perform the range between the students 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. The minimum range is 10, the maximum range is 50. So start from the 0 and 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50. So now we will see the number of the students 16 to 70. So 16 just start from the 0. So 16 to 70 means, so the range between up to 80. So 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 students are presented. This is for y-axis and this is for x-axis. If you see the first one, the range between the 0 to 10, 16 students. The range between the 0 to 10, you have to draw the 16 students here. So 16 is presented in between the 10 to 20. So 10 to 20, 36. The 10 to 20 is 36. So start from the 20. So 36. Then here 36 is presented here in between the 30 to 40, and 20 to 30 students. 70 is presented here. So the 70 is the range between the 60 to 70, and 30 to 40 students are 50. So the range between the 50, then 40 to 50, 28. 28 is indicated with the in between the 20 to 30. So this is the example 2 of the histogram. Thank you.